if you think I'm shit, you're going to leave here, and for the next 30 years, you're going to go, that geezer's a blagger.
Are you a leadership dickhead? Today, Steve Sallis is going to help you become an incredible leader.
You can be really confident, but not competent. So talk a good game, but doesn't deliver.
Yeah. Turn ego into utter confidence and build a dream team.
A football player comes to me, not in a rude way, they're not very good at football. What am I just going to say? Try more, try harder, be confident. They can't control the football.
If Steve Sallis can help Jude Bellingham become an incredible performer, he can help you too.
Yeah, I met him at England camp several years ago.
Let's do this.
My dad would always say, if you're not nice to people, they'll end up punching you in the nose. So be nice to people and, you know, make them feel valued.
Mr. Sallis, it is good to see you again, sir. How not to be a leadership dickhead? How not to be a leadership? What is a dickhead when it comes to leadership then?
Well, it's a dickhead. I think most people have met them, James. Someone that doesn't listen, someone that keeps treading on your toes, someone that interrupts you most days every day, someone without strategy, someone without vision. There's chapter 1, there's 45 of how not to be one. So,
and you've just rattled off 4 or 5 of there. Don't listen, no strategy, trampling on your toes. How did it come about?
It came about because I've been bullied at work before. And most of my mates would go, Sallis, you don't seem the sort of character to get bullied. And I'm like, well, I'm human and I have feelings and I have emotions and I'm quite a sensitive soul deep down above the exterior of my alpha maleness. But yeah, worked for someone that was what I now know as a narcissist. But at the time, I didn't realise what one was. And the book was a passion of mine because I wanted to help people in their 20s that are in their first job and identify that these leaders exist and they mistreat you and they are passive aggressive. And we don't want to live a life like that, right? We want to live a life of love, not hate. So, yeah, it really made me unwell. But I'm here to fight another day and help people and share my journey with you, right?
Yeah, well, look, so you got bullied. How old were you when you got bullied then in that position?
Mid-30s.
Mid-30s. And what impact did that have on you?
Anxiety, lack of sleep, severe mental health. And I had a mate that took me for a pint and saw me a broken man. And bear in mind, you know, we'll touch on this later. I've been a vice principal for 20 years in London schools, so I'm an achiever in that context. So, yeah, it was. There was a program many years ago called The Twilight Zone, which is a program of psychological theory. It was like you're the only sane one in the room, and everyone else is just mad. But then you know you're perceived as mad. So, yeah, real challenge in my life. But we'll touch on that later. But it was something that's probably the best thing that's ever happened to me in hindsight.
So look, where you've been. So you've taught children. You've been vice principal.
Yep.
You're an author, an authority in your own right in the field of leadership. You've worked in elite sports. You're a performance psychologist. You've worked with the likes of Jude Bellingham that every listener knows right now, who played in the England team. You're working with football teams and management. What is it that you actually stand for, Steve?
Well, at first, actually, I'm not a performance psychologist. My master's degree was in ed psych and leadership. So I'm an educator and I'm really proud to call myself a former teacher, but really my job is teachings, isn't it? So yeah, I worked in Lewisham, Greenwich for 20 years, worked in 4 failing schools, gang culture, knife crime, absolutely loved it, best job I've ever done. And then just, you know, navigated, when you're working in failing schools, you learn about strategy. So I'll give your listeners 2 key bits of language: strategy and operation. I was a PE teacher at trade, operationally good with the kids, fight down the shops, go and sort out a school trip, get things done. But what I hadn't learned was strategy. And I don't think you can learn strategy until you live it. And when you're looking at school improvement, you can't improve a school without a strategy. So
when did you realise that you weren't strategic?
My first day as an assistant head teacher in the leadership team meeting, and we had 2 types of meetings: operation and strategy, Monday, Thursday, and it was the Thursday was strategic, and there was language coming out of people's mouths that I didn't understand. Evidence and impact, strategy and operation.
Did they understand it?
Oh yeah, of course they did. They were way ahead of me in terms of that leadership acumen. But yeah, so I knew pretty early. And then I had about 150 emails in my inbox at the end of that day. And then I had a bit of an anxiety because I'm thinking, wow, not only have I got to reply to these emails, because always I try to reply within 24 hours, but I can't reply to 150 emails in 24 hours. So then you have to, I call it in the book, zooming in and zooming out. You then got to zoom out and learn to work smart, you know, and not get sucked into operational demands. And as a leader, particularly a school leader, you have to zoom out and start piecing together how you're going to work in terms of time efficiency, really.
Did you cope with that situation?
Yeah, over time, yeah. I think it's, I say this to footballers, I think if footballers go in the league above, I think it takes them 12 to 15 games to get used to the level. For a new leadership role, I mean, people learn at different paces, but it took me 6 months of adaptation in every leadership role I went up in.
Yeah, and look, in the book, there's a question here on the back. It says, how can greater self-awareness be the path to stronger leadership? Now, you've just mentioned that bullying that took place. Was that a self-awareness piece for you?
Well, from his part, yeah. But again, you know, we're looking at conscious wrongs and unconscious wrongs. So here we go, you're like this, I tread on your toe on a Monday. I go, oh, James, my bad, mate, trod on your toe. And you're like, flipping hell, that hurts, Sallis. Tuesday comes. Guess what? I walk past you and you tread on your toe. And you're like, mate, leave it out, you did that yesterday. And then gosh, Wednesday comes and I only tread on your toe again. You're like, fuck off, mate, you're like, tread on my toe for third down the spin. So when people, you know, keep treading on your toes, whether that be leader or peer, suddenly we get clues to you know, conscious wrongs and unconscious wrongs. So the conscious would be, I've tread on your toe for 3 days, because realistically you're not going to keep doing that on purpose. So yeah, it was that self-awareness from them. But obviously you learn when you're, you know, when I was a high achiever, I had to run my own race. And I think the listeners, I need to explain this. This was a new career for me. So I transitioned from education into pro football. And I had to keep my nut down and dig in and grit and just show resolve, because it was a brand new industry.
It was. I mean, I like the analogy, and there's something really sort of layman terms as you're giving this analogy. Someone stands on your toe and, sorry, mate, sorry for saying it, and they're doing it the next day. So did they actually mean sorry?
No.
They didn't mean sorry?
Narcissists.
What is a narcissist?
Well, first and foremost, potentially in some readings is being diagnosed as a personality disorder. But the signs are passive-aggressive. The signs are me over we. The signs are... They're very... I don't want to answer this right now. They're very diverse. But I would argue the biggest piece of word I can use is not consistent. Narcissists can also be very charming. So they can often manage upwards really well, right, in terms of the board, profit and loss. But actually, people at soldiers level will often not be felt, loved, rewarded, cared for. There'll be limited psychological safety. You know, the psychological safety barrier that we all want at work is really important. But a narcissist will hinder that, because they're not able to build truly authentic relationships. They're not always often able to be vulnerable either. So there'll be some people listening to that as you've just sort of described it or defined it, that will feel like, oh, I've got a bit of that. What should they do next if that's the listeners listening? Well, if they identify it in themselves, firstly, well done to them.
Can you identify it in yourself if you're a narcissist?
Well, you have to have huge levels of self-awareness, right? That's knowing how you act. Let's simplify this, the self-awareness piece. Knowing how you act, knowing how you interact, and knowing how you react to scenarios.
That's a really nice combination, isn't it?
Yeah, I've simplified it.
Yeah.
You know, it's knowing what you know and knowing what you don't know, but making sure...
being aware of both.
Yeah, and listen, I love my one-liners and I'll bore you to death with them today, but look in the mirror, not out the window. And there's too many people looking out the window. So my job, you know, with people is to make sure we keep looking in the mirror and understand that. But I think I need to share this with you. Just spoke to some of your staff off air here about our journeys of life, right? And I fluked self-awareness in a major way, because I worked in Lewisham and Greenwich, you know, the toughest schools in the UK, right? And dealt with the toughest environments I could possibly explain to people. And the kids, when I was a 21-year-old PE teacher, said to me, Sallis, your lessons are shit, mate. And I'm like, what? And they're going, Powley's better than you, Sallis. Powley's better than you. Now, Powley was Mr. Powell, was another PE teacher. And he was 3 years ahead of me, you know, on his journey, 3 years older, 3 years better. And that was the day I went, wow. And drove home, and the word the kids would use back in the day was devoed, so devastated. Calling all my uni mates going, come on, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And in my book, I call it the downgrade. Who wants to be the downgrade podcast host? Who wants to be the downgrade football coach? Who wants to be the downgrade leader? Like, I don't know anyone who wants to be the downgrade. So I definitely didn't want to be the teacher downgrade. So guess what? I've got to get better. So the reason I say I fluke self-awareness, because if you work in a middle-class school, respectfully, mums and dads are going to bring their kids up to not be derogatory to school teachers, right? They're going to say, yes, sir, no, sir. But because I worked in real schools, guess what? Kids told me the truth. So I knew early in my career that I've got to liven up and I've got to improve. And then I've got this obsession now with, a lot of successful people work through fear as well, right? You got this, who wants to be the downgrade? And when you present at events like I do, we both do, who wants to be the downgrade? Like, who wants people coming out of that room going, yeah, you're crap, innit? So guess what? I've got to control this, and I'm in control of making myself as articulate, as inspiring, and as passionate and as knowledgeable as anyone on the circuit.
There's a bit of inspiration in that story from your response, though, because yes, the young man told you the truth. Your lessons are shit.
Yeah.
But it's how you responded, which was the good part. And I suppose the critical ingredient in there is you need someone to hold the mirror to you. You're doing that in your part in all of the stuff that you do each day, and when you do conferences and when you teach people and when you educate other people. So you're doing that, you're holding a mirror up. And we certainly are from a leadership perspective. What role does ego play in all of this?
Ego state, interesting. I think that links back to self-awareness. We've all got a little bit of an ego. It's interesting. I was at Cambridge United yesterday, and I asked the young players, I've got a project called My Future Self. So will my future self thank me for decisions I make today? So one of the questions I asked all the youth team players in the country is confidence or arrogance? And I get them to stand up and share their lens and how they see the world on the words. I then get them to write a definition, and an ego got brought up. And ego often gets brought up around where is that line between confidence and arrogance. And most of the boys, all 16 to 18, all aspiring professional footballers, most of them come to the agreement is confidence is knowing you're good, and I think we need to celebrate that, and arrogance is thinking you're better than others. And therefore, I think that clarity, I know you've asked me about ego and I've just typically sidewind into something else, but I think we need to connect language and other words, because ego is quite a difficult thing to define. But if we touch on confidence, arrogance, then we move into that place.
I quite like that bit, thinking that you're better than others. There's a judgment piece going on there as well. You're judging yourself against others and you're judging others there. But if you were to give a few confidence is, you've already said one. What else is confidence?
Execution
of
something.
Taking action. Confidence is willingness to take action.
Okay, execution. Like confidence, competence. Listen, we're going around the houses. You can be really confident but not competent, right? So talk a good game but doesn't deliver.
Yeah.
But confidence and the ability to execute, we're now moving into competence, right? So
Yeah.
you've got to be good at something. But confidence, I don't want to go down the line of fake confidence and make this podcast about just navigating some mad deep dives where we're not staying on topic. But confidence in the truest sense is about execution, your ability to execute something, because it's heavily linked to competence. But I'm going to challenge people on is people were highly confident but not competent. And I think, and I talk in the book about this, about introverts, extroverts, there's loads of really competent leaders out there, really competent, but are not very confident. And there's a great book called, I think it's a guy called David Rock, that talks about quiet leadership. And it talks about those people that are highly confident but low in confidence, or highly confident but we don't always see it in its truest sense.
Comment on this. I'm going to make a few comments that I believe in. All right. So confidence is willingness to face the truth. All right. Look in the mirror. Confidence is the willingness to look in the mirror, like you said.
Yeah.
Confidence is the willingness to have ambition. Confidence is the willingness to do whatever it takes. Confidence is the willingness to keep the promises to yourself.
Yeah, belief.
Confidence is being yourself.
Yeah. Listen, you've answered it better than me. Yeah.
But which one of those are resonating?
being yourself, I think, takes time. You don't. I mean, I'm in my 40s, so I was an anxious man in my 20s. I was less anxious in my 30s, and I'm less anxious in my 40s. I think. I work.
Is that
with
wisdom?
Yeah,
experience,
probably. Age, more reflection,
maturity.
And I think wealth as well. And I'm not touching on wealth. I've got no money anyway. But I think when you're a school teacher, you don't enter teaching because you're really motivated about money. So the beautiful thing about my life is that I don't really want money. And people go, "What do you mean you don't want money?" And I go, "Well, when you start teaching, you're not going to earn any major money. So therefore, my relationship with money is really good. Whereas some people that I meet in business are obsessed with this thing called money, and I'm like, that's weird. I mean, you can have loads of money, but we know that that's not going to make you intrinsically happy. So I think the balance of money is a fine line, but the confidence piece is about, for me, contentment. Confident to be content.
If the listeners were to move a few steps forward to having some more confidence, because most people want a little bit more confidence, what advice would you give them?
Easy. Competence.
Get better.
Yeah, just people call me a motivational speaker. It does my head in. Absolutely winds me up. All right, so in my first book, I've got a chapter called The Singer, Not the Song. This is really relevant, right? Song's my content. The song's my subject knowledge. Just talking about leadership, high-performing teams. The singer's the person that brings that to life. And so when people, oh, yeah, Steve Sallis is a motivational speaker, what, me being positive? Is that where we're at in life? Is that where we're at, where being positive is like a bonus? Like, we should all be positive. Do you know what I mean? We should all be like, hello, how you doing? And how's life? And can I help you? And, meeting your staff today and finding out where they're from. That's standard in my world. But my song, my content is power. And when people hear me speak and my research and my applied work, my song is what's getting me through the door. So if someone wants to be confident, they've got to be good at something. You've got to be 10 out of 10 at something. So it's a myth. What am I? A football player comes to me, not in a rude way, they're not very good at football. What am I just going to say? Try more, try harder, be confident. They can't control the football. So it's flawed, isn't it?
It is. I mean, look, there's a real down-to-earth nature about how you converse in all of this and the language that you're using. But that's the look in the mirror again, isn't it? The confidence to tell the truth. What would you say to them? What would you say in that instance?
I'm not as blunt as that. But when people call me like the psychologist or the mindset coach, just so we're clear, by definition, I'm a school teacher and a football coach. Right? I've just chosen to go down the psych route because I see there's a huge gap. I also don't want to work on the grass anymore because I don't enjoy it enough. So what I tie in is the technical, the tactical, the physical and the psychological, and blend that into high performance football players. So I don't just say try harder. I'm not that guy. We look at data, we look at distance covered, we look at touches in the final third, touches in the penalty box, and bring some science to high performance. And I can't do the one-to-one bit and improve them on the grass, so they've got to do that themselves. I might be the person that says to them, look, you need more one-to-one intervention to become highly more technical. And as you know, I'm working with Premier League footballers, so they don't really need loads of technical, although they do need refining. It still needs working on. So yeah, just a balance to be had about how we improve people.
Yeah, and let's just go back to the ego comment, because that inspired us into confidence here as well. So we talk about ego getting in the way in the book. Ego can get in the way. I'm just relating to business for a second. How does it get in the way of communication? Because communication is really, really important.
Well, often it gets in terms of, if we look at communication as listening, so let's forget talking. We've all met people that interrupt you every single day. Then there might be a situation on this podcast where we naturally, automatically, but that's not what I mean. What I mean is, if I keep treading on your toe, it then becomes a conscious wrong, right? So those people that deliberately interrupt, that would be a massive sign of an ego. Those people that don't see the lens of others, and my language around the lens, I do not see the world how you see the world. I do not see the world how your staff here see the world. So unless we understand the lens of each other in high-performing teams and align those lenses, we're never, ever going to have a high-performing team, ever.
That's emotional intelligence. That is awareness of not just yourself, awareness of perception of others as well.
But then that links to ego. Because a person with an ego would understand that. They would have, you know, the awareness of knowing how you act and knowing how you interact and knowing how you react. So,
your first point on listening, I learned this from a professor called Dr. Martin Newman, professor of emotional intelligence, and he said this. It's dramatic. Listening is the biggest skill in the world at reducing resistance in any area of life. You want to reduce the resistance? Listen. And it's kind of irrefutable, isn't it, when you understand that? And so, you know, when I said communication, first thing you said is listen. What about relationships? How does the ego affect relationships?
Tough questions today, aren't they? I haven't really thought about this. The ego reflects relationships because it goes back to self-awareness. And with self-awareness, we can be more aware, we can be more authentic, we can be more mindful. I'll give you an example. I can play golf with people, and you know I love my golf, right? I can play golf with people, and they will not ask me a question in 4 hours. How can you play golf with somebody and not ask them a question in 4 hours? So that's a great analogy, because there's not many people that I play with don't ask me a question, but there's always 3 or 4 people a year, businessmen or women, that just don't ask me a question in 4 hours. And I'm like, this is weird. So, hello, how are you? And I already know, like, one of your lads who works here is from Walthamstow, and the other lady, she's from Leicester, and that's how you connect, because you take an interest in other people. So what I think is quite common sense. I mean, remember, I'm the son of a plumber that was on building sites. So my dad would always say, if you're not nice to people, they'll end up punching you on the nose. So be nice to people and, you know, make them feel valued.
Welcome to the BizX podcast, sharing with you all of the secrets and winning formulas in both business and life, with powerful lessons from guests like Frank Bruno, Nick Jenkins, Brad Sugars, Bianca Westwood, and many, many more. Yet, the sad reality is that over 80% of you aren't subscribed yet. And if that's you, hit the subscribe button now and help us grow this channel so that you can get 1% closer every single week to achieving your dreams in both business and life. Let's do this. It's a beautiful point. It's a simple point, isn't it? Because everyone can relate to what you've just said.
Yeah.
And starts with asking a question and showing interest. I think, is that your own moral compass that decides that?
Yeah. Ethics and morals are a big part of my world. I'm not perfect, so we're aligned here, yeah. Just my guy on my journey. But morally, and I think education, when you learn education and when you go to university, I remember I did a B.Ed. So a B.Ed means I committed to 4 years at uni before I even become a teacher. Some people do a PGC, which is like a year add-on. Yeah. So the great thing about a 4-year education degree is, you know, when you're learning about philosophy and why we think like we think and why we know what we know and how that applies to our behaviours and what is ethically correct. We would ask loads of questions at uni on ethics. So, yeah, I think, and also, sorry, my father and my mother were just good people, good, honest people, and you're only a victim of your own environment in a good or bad way, aren't you? So I'm pretty lucky. My brother's a head teacher, and we're a working class family, so pretty lucky to live our race. And my advice to everyone is run your own race. Don't be a version of me, be the best version of you, but pick parts from other people. And you know, the best coaches are the best thieves, James, we always say, you know.
Make good choices. I mean, let's look at decisions as well, because you speak about decisions in the book. Ego can impact decisions. How does ego impact your decision making?
Blind spots, arrogance, ignorance. I mean, yeah, I'm rattling this off because the good thing about you haven't prepped me for these questions, so we're just free rolling. But yeah, arrogance, ignorance, blind spots. That decision making process. When I talk about we, not me in my corporate training, it's very simple. We've got a leadership team. How do we want to grow? What do we think? What solutions have we got? What would you do in this situation? So I call that common sense in terms of leading people and making decisions.
Yeah, I do like the common sense. Common sense isn't always common practice. Yeah. The big thing that you gave me, though, there is that when your ego is high, your awareness might be low because of your blind spots, what you just said, ignorant to your blind spots. Ego can get in the way of your own self-awareness.
I mean, we're bringing up ego. I mean,
what are the good bits?
Like ego, well, the confidence stuff. If you back yourself, you back yourself. So if people don't know me intimately, they could potentially say I'm having myself, but not in a weird way. I'm a serial achiever, and I'm not saying that in a weird way. Like the 40,000 kids in Lewisham tell me that I'm still all right, but I still stay in touch on Facebook, which they choose to do in their 30s. Ex-students call me, go, Sallis, can I have some work? Like, that's my legacy. My legacy is really important to me. My legacy is really important. I walk into a football changing room. Well, I'm just going to walk in, and you know footballers because you love your football, but I can't just walk in being flaky and going, oh, hello, lads. I've got to know what I'm doing. And I do know what I'm doing, and I know I'm going to get results. So that could be perceived as ego, but the reality is, firstly, I'm just trying to be authentic. Secondly, I'm really trying to portray a level of confidence, but that confidence is not fake. It's because I know if we do this, we'll get results. Fact. Because I live it. So I know it will work. And when I mean work, let me just clarify this. I know it will add value, not necessarily get results. But the analogy I give, under my watch, you don't get beat 3-0, you get beat 1-0. Under my watch, you don't get beat 4-1, you get beat 2-1. So learning to lose, particularly in elite sport, learning to lose and how you lose is massive.
There's a couple of things I got from what you said there and believe it or not, I was thinking to myself, this is really important. Know yourself and the bits that you know about yourself that's good and strong. It's not ego, it's confidence. And know your team as well. Know the other people around you. And can we talk about teams, actually?
Please.
And because a lot of the people listening, they want to build a winning team, a strong team. But specifically, how do you build a strong team mentally?
Well, if we look at caliber again, not character. What I mean is character caliber debate. So you've asked me about the character bit, the mentally, but let's flip that again and look at caliber. Firstly is look at people's super strengths. So if we've got super strengths and everyone's brilliant and doing what they should be doing, then we're more likely to then get that confidence to be able to apply it and that character piece. So I think looking at gap audits, looking at people's super strengths, looking at what their X factor traits are first, and in a business. And in businesses, a lot of them, it should be the other way around. You've got a job description and someone's got to fit into the job description. But I'm like, well, what do they offer and how could they add value? And then that links to leaders and CEOs' mental agility. Because if they're more mentally agile to look at the modern working place, we know the term, if you do what you do, you get what you've always got. So we have to be more mentally agile now in the modern world because we're also dealing with younger people, different society, their lenses on the world. So I think, and I'm not saying you can't have a job description. What I'm saying is we need to look at who's in front of us and seeing if that person with their multitude of strengths could add value. I think it's also really important. I stick up for youngsters when in the book I've got a chapter called Experience or Experience Is. And I get really pissed off with bosses going, oh, they haven't got the experience. And I'm like, well, they might have the experiences and they're 21. And obviously, because I've worked in London and in the schools, I've seen all these wonderful young people with the best experiences ever that would outpower any older person, but they're not given jobs. So I'm going to push CEOs to say, look, let's look at people's experiences and have they gone and done extras and seen different things and how can that add value to this business?
And that's going to require asking questions. That's going to require getting on the same page and showing interest and finding out what they've done, what they're capable of doing.
Some people care and some people don't about that, though, right? You've got to be curious. Got to be curious as leaders. You've got to be curious. And if linking to the ego, if people got an ego, they often don't have that growth mindset. They don't really. Some people we know don't really want to improve, do they? Some people we meet don't really want to engage in someone. They don't really want to go, hello, how are you? They don't really want to go, how can I help you? And that links to servant leadership, which is also in the book. The great leaders say, what can I do to help you? The crap leaders say, what can you do to help me? Mad, isn't it?
Is it as simple... Just listening to you saying that, it's going to attract more people to want to be servant leaders. It's going to attract more people. Is that literally the first thing that they should do? Just ask people, what can I do to help you?
Right. I'll share this. This I spoke about this at 2:00 yesterday when I met Cambridge United youth team. I said, true story, you think I'm here to help you. And they're like, yeah. I go, the truth is, you're here to help me. And they're like, what? What's he talking about? And I said to him, pardon my French, if you think I'm shit, you're going to leave here, and for the next 30 years, you're going to go, that geezer's a blagger. He don't know what he's talking about. So I said, the reality is we are genuinely peers here. I'm in my mid-40s, you're in your teenage years, but we are peers. Because if I don't genuinely help you today, you are going to leave here and you're just going to go, this geezer don't know what he's talking about. So how obvious is that? And the universe transpires. I'm not religious, but I'm very spiritual. How do we get people to talk about us when we're not in the room? And I know how that is. Be kind, be caring, love everyone, hate no one, and know your topic. I mean, it can't get more straightforward than that, surely.
Be kind, be curious, love everyone, hate no one, and know your stuff.
Yeah.
Whatever your stuff is, that's your topic, that's your song.
Well, and then you got the singer to bring that to life, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, and so what happened yesterday? Did they enjoy it? Were you shit?
Nah, I've been doing this long enough.
Did you win the crowd?
Yeah,
Maximus
all
style.
Kids are good kids. Like, this is another thing in the UK. Like, an expert hires an expert. I'm getting more and more parents now asking me for help. Families asking me for help, which I like doing, but I don't necessarily love it because it's something that takes me away from building my business. But I'll always say, yes, you've got a young client that I'm more than happy to help, and all these things. So I think it's about our why. Sometimes my good lady will say to me, you need to fill your own cup. So when you asked me today, am I playing golf this afternoon? I told you I'm going home to rest.
No, you didn't just say rest. You said I'm going home to rest and meditate.
Yeah, I did say that as well. Yeah, because I'm feeling a bit edgy. And I've got 3 days of quite heavy work coming up, so I know I need to reset myself. I've got 2 school gigs coming up this week, and they're really full on.
What kind of meditation do you do?
Guided, because I'm rubbish, because my brain goes mucky. Yeah, so Deepak Chopra's my man. He does
it's simple.
21 days of abundance.
Oh, it's are you doing that?
Yeah.
What day are you on?
Oh, I do it all the time.
Oh,
I just flip around. Yeah, I've been doing it for years, but
yeah. Massive recommendation for all the listeners right now. Go and grab Deepak's 21 Days of Abundance.
Quality.
If you want to get into meditation, that is single-handedly the best way of getting into it that I've ever seen.
Yeah, it just takes the edge away for me.
Simple. It's a framework to follow.
Yeah. And my job, if I get my violins out, is not easy. And I've got a corporate responsibility to still give back to kids. And while the kids still think I'm young enough to be their dad, not their granddad, I reckon I've got about 2.5 years left before I get granddaded off by the teenagers. I'm going to give as much to these young people as possible to make sure. And partly I'm an idiot because I could spend that time working in corporates, finding more work, building a business, but also when the phone rings and head teachers want me, I'm like, all right, let's go.
You mentioned this a couple of times. We've not gone into it. So what are the keys to creating an environment that's psychologically safe for the team that you're with?
Language, good language, tonality.
What does good language mean?
Just saying words which really resonate, saying words which you truly understand, saying words that we're aligned with. Language is a crazy thing. Like, we've all got these words. Some words mean different words to you. They do different meanings to me. So just the self-awareness of the language that we use, tonality, understanding people's lens, making sure we're aligned, understanding quick wins, understanding strategy in terms of a medium and long-term planning, taking hits for the team, understanding when to be good cop, understanding when to be bad cop, and navigating your way through certain scenarios with people, conflict resolution, and understanding we can have conflict, but it doesn't have to be anarchy, it doesn't have to be derogatory. So there's a million things that we can do.
There's a lot of things on that list, and it's a good list for all the listeners. Where should you start?
Self-awareness.
Of?
Knowing how you act, knowing how you interact, knowing how you react, looking at your calibre.
If we could ask, sorry for interrupting there. We're not talking over each other, folks. That's an example of a deep conversation just bouncing around, yeah? If there was one question to ask for those 3 scenarios, how you act, how you interact, how you react, what is it just how do I act? Or is there a better...
Okay, I'll give you one of my keynote questions when I'm doing corporate training. And the question is this: how do you know that you know something? And everyone goes, flipping out, how do I know that I know? So I give people 5 minutes to reflect and think about how they know that they know. So we then get back, get some reflection time, and people go, I know that I know because I've learnt it. I know that I know because someone taught it to me. I know that I know because I can teach it to someone else. I know that I know I've read it. I know that I know because science has said it's correct. The problem we got, James, and this is the biggest problem in work, they go, I know that I know because John down the pub told me, and I really like John, he's a really good lad, but we know that John just talks bollocks. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, John.
So I know that I know, because I read that newspaper. Like, no, that's not the truth. So unless we baseline our knowledge, I don't get all technical here now, thinking, doing and knowing. Our knowing affects how we think, and our thinking affects how we know, and our knowing affects what we do. And that triangle of the three causes havoc or creates greatness. So in my second degree, I learned something called metacognition. Metacognition changed my life. It has two meanings: how we know that we know things, and thinking about being a better thinker.
How do we know what we know then?
Well,
what did you learn?
I've just described, experience is me being able to teach it. I know that I'm half decent at my job. Do you know why? Genuinely, because I get feedback all the time saying he's really good.
And maybe that competence thing, that ability to articulate it, you got to sing the song.
Yeah.
Is that how you know what you know?
Well, if I've got a GCSE group, let's make this really simple. I've got a GCSE group and they get really good results, and another teacher has the same class and they get less good results of a different subject. That's more evidence in my toolbox that I know that I can add value to young people. Therefore, I know that I'm a good teacher because get results. I know because the football teams that I work with get better results.
Result does give confidence, doesn't it? When you win something,
100%.
It only gives you confidence if you take it, though.
Yeah, but this links back to the book again. First book, really, Prove, Improve. The prove, improve balance is fine. We all want to prove, we want to get result, we all want to feel good, we all want to get a certificate. But actually, and schools, I call schools exam factories, you know that. I'm not a lover of modern day education. I think it's prehistoric. I think kids are stressed out in schools. I'm not happy with it. I think the curriculum's old and dated. And wouldn't it be brilliant if we had a GCSE in character development, but we don't. What's stopping us provide that? But the curriculum is so rigid. So if we taught children, or the only controllable in your life is just get better, just the improve bit, then I think we'd be in a much better place.
I heard this recently, and it kind of blew my mind a little bit. I can't remember the person who said it. I should really find out their name. A person who enjoys walking will always walk further than a person who enjoys the destination. And the point is, enjoy the process. What's that got to do with prove, improve? Has the process got something to do with improvements?
Yeah, because the improve bit is the journey, isn't it? The prove is the outcome. The prove is the result. Prove is I've got a certificate, I've got a GCSE, I've got an MBA. Like, that's the prove. But we have to try and enjoy. Like last season, 2 seasons ago, I got promoted with Northampton, and last season I got relegated with Sutton United. Am I any better or any worse? But I guarantee you, before results and after results, we had factually we added value points per game. Fact. So we got more points per game, but we still got relegated. So the news and the history books will say we still got relegated. We failed, but it's one of the biggest achievements of my career to take it to the last game of the season.
What do you think of this one then? Ronaldo. I made note of this in preparation for this. I wanted to see your opinion on it. Your love makes me strong, and your hate makes me unstoppable. He's constantly using things and turning it into positive energy for himself.
Yeah, I haven't seen that about him. I mean, I talk about this with him. I think obviously he's been a legend of the game, and he's now at the end of his career, and I think he's not quite coping with that. And by the way, I've never spoken to him, never met him, but I don't think he's coping. And by the way, can you imagine being him and then not being as good as he was because of age, nothing to do with him personally, and then the age factor catching up on him, and then suddenly you're like the most important person in the world, and then not in a rude way, he's going to become less important every day, isn't he? So that must be really difficult for him, and why I say to players and managers about getting psychological support, because that transition from player to non-player, I can sort of see it in his behaviour a little bit. There's definitely a level of enhanced anxiety in his performance with his body language and his hands in the air and what he's doing. But I can't sit here and say this is hate about him. I just admire him massively. Like, how can you not admire him? But I'm actually more worried about his own headspace, about that transition to finish. What is he actually going to do, and how is he going to be fulfilled, and how is he going to get that buzz, which most elite footballers that I know struggle with.
Yeah, and look, you talked about the anxiety, showing the anxiety on the pitch. I mean, one person who's ridiculously level-headed, very young, very talented, is Jude Bellingham.
Yeah.
And I do see that whole calmness and maturity at such a young age, but not just that, the technical skill, his ability, his potential being sky high. Now he's in Real Madrid. Now, you mentored him at a young age. Yeah,
I met him at England camp, under 15, several years ago. But everything about that boy is just to do with his family, James. Like, family, and him.
How important is family in success?
Well, I think it gives you more. A good family is more psychological safety. A poor family is less psychological safety. So I think that's huge. You know, Dad was a police officer in the West Midlands Police, non-league player. His father, so he knows his football inside out. And Birmingham City staff need all the credit. They did everything. And the reason he wore 22 at Birmingham, I don't want to get all football chat here because it's not a football podcast, but he could play in the 4, the 8 and the 10, which are 3 different positions, which is why he wore the 22. And the reason I'm sharing that is they wanted to produce a player that was totally adaptable rather than just one position. So I think, yeah, Birmingham City staff, Mike Dodds, Stuart English, Christian Speakman, all those people deserve that credit because of their vision and their mental agility to see his potential.
Yeah, making an adaptable player, holistic, at a really young age. Well said, by the way, and well given credit for. A few quick questions here. I don't know how quick this one's going to be. What's the most beautiful thing in the world?
Wow, what a question. Most beautiful thing in the world. Contentment.
Why do you say that?
Because I was thinking of like golf shots, my good lady, of course, my parents, the sky.
So you went with like peace, contentment, yeah?
Yeah.
Inner peace.
Yeah, definitely. You know, when you're feeling, I've told you I'm not feeling content this week, but I felt content last week. And next week I'm going to feel content because my week's easier. Contentment.
What's the most beautiful thing in leadership?
Kindness.
That's good.
Easy one though, that one. Easy one.
What's the best gift you can give anyone?
Time.
Have you had to learn that the hard way?
Nah, Dad taught me that. Dad taught me when I was 4. Son, here you go. Every person you meet, look him in the eye, shake their hand and ask them how they are. When I was 4.
What was your dad's name?
Tom, legend.
Still around?
Yeah, legend. Tom Sallis, everyone in Brighton.
Who's his team?
Well, he's George Best fan when he was.
Right.
He looked like George Best as well. But he's Brighton season ticket holder now, so he goes home and away supporting them.
Doing pretty good as well. Young manager, 31-year-old manager.
Do you know what? Not in a rude way again, because I've got football out of my head. I don't really know much about him other than, it's hard to keep up with everything in football. But yeah, Brighton doing really well. Led by a proper leader, Tony Bloom, who's my dad did all the plumbing for them, believe it or not, for many years. Yeah, it's Brighton's a small town, really.
What's the last football question? What's your favourite football moment ever?
Oh, so many. Oh, as a player, so many. I can't answer that. I was a bad player, but I did have some good memories. But as a staff member, probably putting on the England kit and going, this is weird. Turning up to England camp and going, oh my God, just keep looking down at the 3 lions and going, that's weird. But then, I'm now working for UEFA and, mentoring some of the future world's best managers. I'm mentoring the Scottish national team, currently doing their B licence that are looking to go next level beyond their career. So I've got some great gigs, and it's hard to answer. It's a good question. I'm grateful for lots of things. Getting my degree, getting my masters, writing books. Like I'm lucky.
Who are you most grateful for?
Mum and Dad, without a doubt. Dad just saying do better than me. That's all he ever said. We went from a Cortina to an Escort to a Sierra, and then all Ford cars. Dad went from a Sherpa van to like a Ford to a Mercedes. My dad's got a Mercedes van. Come on. So seeing the growth as a child was definitely a metaphor for me and my brother. My brother's head teacher. He's flying in Malaysia, so he's a head teacher out there. So I definitely think you need to smell this stuff. It's a bit like trauma. Trauma can hold on, but also these great memories are your guides to aspiration.
And minus your book, what are the 1, 2, or 3 best books you've ever read?
Legacy, James Kerr.
Beautiful book. 15 lessons in leadership.
Yeah, it's decent, solid,
really solid.
Wayne Bennett, Don't Die with the Music in You. It's not been on Amazon. I've just reordered it. It's been out of the sync for 5 years, 6 years. It's unbelievable. He's an Aussie AFL coach, and I just love. He talks about one of the things. He talks about the what if brigade. So it's like the people that whinge and moan and always got a problem, not a solution. And he just talks about the what if brigade. He just says what if this and what if that. Well, don't be part of the what if brigade. And other book. What would I say? I'd probably go for David Rock, Quiet Leadership. Because I'm more extrovert and I wanted to learn about being more calm and measured and structured around that. So yeah, good book.
And the first action that you would offer as any form of advice to the listeners once they've listened to this?
Run your own race, be selfless, but also know when to fill your own cup. Sorry to interject, but that means learning to say no.
How can people learn to say no? A lot of people want to say no. How do you learn to say no?
An advantage is have things in the bank with people. So that'd be one way.
Emotional bank account?
Yeah, I think so, because if you say no, then people are not going to be bothered by it. But if you're selfish and you just say no to people short term, it's unlikely that you're going to get your wins.
It still comes down to a moment of courage, doesn't it? The courage to actually say no. And if you haven't got that spike and feeling of courage, and right now, you're not going to necessarily say no.
And I make it sound easy, but I'm learning that, and I'm learning to be better at it. So it's not meant to sound easy. I'm just reminding people that I need to do it as well.
What's been your favourite part of this discussion?
Us two getting to know each other better. You challenged me. You challenged me on ego when I didn't know they were coming, and me having to reflect on it, and me connecting it, and I haven't really connected it because I've got my own things going on. But yeah, you've challenged me on the ego and connecting it.
I think that's a good word actually for my favourite part. Connected is you are so down to earth. You've had a humble start in life, and I think my favourite part is believing you're doing right now what you're supposed to be doing to make a difference. I think you're making a huge difference. So
thank you.
Thank you very much for being on the podcast.
You're making a huge difference as well. So thanks for having me. Well done to the team back there. They need a reward because they're doing their bit. And brilliant chat. Thanks.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Mr. Sallis. See you again next time.
Cheers.